Sweet Christmas.
Shout out to my birds.
Hello. This is Che.
And this is Corey.
And this is the Next Time On podcast, a podcast where two lifelong friends talk about all the things they love and all the things they hate. And today we'll be talking about a comic book, even though both of us really want to be talking about Dune. But we will save that. Don't worry, that's coming. We also really want to be talking about this comic book too, so that's...
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I don't want to discount this comic book because it's one of my favorite books.
It's great. It's a great book. I can't lie.
But I'm very excited for, like, I'm going to put the announcement in now, and I'm not even going to consult you before I do this, Che, but I think we should do our own Dune episode.
Yeah.
That should be coming out. That's going to be coming out sometime after this podcast.
What we should do is a Denis Villeneuve episode where we just talk about...
I want to talk about
7 hours.
I just want to talk about Dune.
A little bit of Dune.
I want to talk about Dune for about 12 hours, and then that's about it. But let's hop into the book before we just become completely annoying.
Well, a couple points
More
of business
annoying.
before we jump into this book. If you have not already, please go rate us 5 stars. It really helps out the podcast and helps new people find us. All that good stuff. Also, you can find us at Next Time On Pod on any social media platforms. And last but not least, of course, the nexttimeon.net will have all of our archive writing, all of our past and future podcasts, all that good stuff. You can find all that there. That's nexttimeon.net. I didn't officially run this by Corey, but I'm just going to throw it out there now. I think this is our last book club of the year as the end of year content comes in. And we usually take a pause in November and December, unless you got one that you really want to squeeze in before the end of the year.
Not particularly, because, this year we're also going to be trying to, highlight some of our favorite books at the end of the year, too.
Yeah.
So I think, I think this might have been my number one of last year, and I'm finally glad we got around to, actually talking about it. So I'm pretty okay with that. We got a lot of stuff, piled up by the end of the year. I just announced that we're doing a special episode on Dune because fuck it. Fuck a schedule. So I think I'm very okay with this. I think our end of the year contents there's been a lot of great books this year, so I'm really excited to kind of talk about those briefly and probably bridge those into next year's podcast.
I also really wanted, not that any listeners will care at all, and because we stopped numbering the podcast, we could probably just lie to them, but I really want to time out our 250th episode so it comes after the new year so we can do something special for that. We haven't really fully decided what we're going to do, but that's a little inside baseball that you guys don't need. But let's jump into this. Let's jump into this book because it's a good book, and we haven't even said what the name is yet, unless you guys decided not to read the title of the podcast for some reason.
Which is, I feel like that's one thing about this book, and now our title for this episode is just, it's very grabbing, I think.
Yeah. That's a good point. I didn't really think about that. If you don't know what this book is, and you clicked on it, you're like, is this a true crime podcast?
Honestly, Che, I've been waiting.
It's not a true crime podcast.
Why won't you let me do it?
Well, first we'd have to commit a true crime. You want to commit a true crime and then do a podcast about it?
Let's just say I've already had some piled up waiting in the production docket, but hey, you let me know, Che.
Jesus Christ. All right.
What?
Today we are talking about the first volume of Something is Killing the Children, the James Tynion IV horror graphic novel comic book from Boom Studios.
Horror action, I guess, is the best way to put it. And to me personally, dark comedy, but I feel like that's not really.
Yes, there are some as with all Tynion books, there are some moments of true humor in here. But also, before we jump in, shout out to Werther Deladera and Miguel Muerto, who do the art on this, the artist and colorist, respectively. But so first up, Corey, part one of this book club. Who are the people that did this book? First, we'll talk about James himself, a man who has had a lot of... He's been featured a lot on this podcast recently, but what do we have to say about Mr. Tynion?
I think I might have mentioned this earlier this year when I was talking about... I think maybe before we did our pitch meetings beforehand, the book The Woods. And after finishing that book, I was like, I think this man might be my current favorite ongoing, besides our Lord and Savior, Jeff Lemire.
He edges out Tom King for you?
Huh? I think he does. I think he edges out Tom King for me because he writes the type of shit that I genuinely enjoy. Like, I can respect Tom as a writer, but the story ideas and the things that James has like done always kind of like it ticks the box for me. And I love the fact that he's able to do so many types of genres in the comic book medium, where you have something like the Department of Truth that we have talked about recently, where was it also a book club of ours, or did we just kind of do a deep
No,
dive,
I think we just did we just talked about it on the podcast. We haven't done a book club on it yet.
Yeah, and the Department of Truth, which is like a very like dark, but a bit more like I don't want to say Twin Peaks is, but kind of Sandman-esque, where it kind of just branched out to its own story.
The art style is definitely very reminiscent of Sandman.
Yes,
sure.
Absolutely. But then you'll go to something like The Backstagers, which is just a genuinely like fun comic about a group of teenagers who are doing plays, and it's very theatery. But then you'll go back to Batman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is like this is a Batman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles book, but it's not dumb. Right. Like it could be really bad, but it's actually genuinely enjoyable.
I think those are always the best. Those are always the best comic books when you're like you go in thinking this is going to be silly or stupid, and then it ends up being really amazing. I mean, the one that I always reference because it's still one of my favorite single issues of all time is the Batman Elmer Fudd book, where I picked it up only because it was Tom King, and I was like, this is going to be stupid, but whatever. It's one issue, and then it was like one of the best things I've ever read. Period. And yeah, it's the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is very much in the same category. As a man who does not like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I really enjoy it.
And I do like them, but even I was like, this is going to be dumb. And I'm like, oh, this was good. And also, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is too much of a mouthful for a podcast. Yeah. So I'm just going to say TMNT just to kind of keep it moving. But also than that, he's also done like a shit ton of Batman stuff. His Detective Comics run was really well done. Joker War was more recent and is also really well done. And I mentioned The Woods, and I think I want to get Che to read The Woods at some point on this book club. But I think everything I've read by him, I'd be interested in talking more about. And with his most recent book, The Nice House on the Lake, I'm just like, everything he doesn't miss to me. Yeah. And The Nice House on the Lake was one of those books where I'm like, I've been waiting for someone to kind of adapt or like take over 20th Century Boys, another one of my favorite Japanese comics, and kind of Americanize it, and he did in such a way that I'm like, I hope someone adapts this as a film. And I also learned the Department of Truth just got picked up for a TV show. So this man's having a great year.
I saw that news, and I'm like partly excited for it and partly kind of terrified because
I don't know how you like. I'm always worried about those types of shows that like go because I mean it has to seem like each episode is going to be covering its own thing, right? Like we're going to have our main characters, but it's going to be a bit more of a focus on what the story is exactly.
Yeah,
which is like the opposite of like an X-Files kind of thing, like negative X-Files.
My biggest worry about that is not even like the plot, which is like like you're saying, it's a little difficult to adapt to a TV show. The biggest problem for me is I don't know how you do the show without the art style. The art is it's so
chaotic
to it. Yeah. But I'm obviously going to watch it because I love that book. And we had mentioned a couple of his other things already. Corey did. Just wanted to give a shout out to, of course, Justice League Dark, the Joker run from earlier this year.
Did you enjoy that? I haven't got a chance to read that one yet.
I liked it. I don't know. It's always hard. Like villain books are, I think, usually very hit or miss, and
especially with a character like the Joker, who's just so despicable but entertaining.
Right. The one that we talked about on the podcast that we both really enjoyed is he's done a lot of Batman books. He's got another one coming out soon, Batman versus Vampires or something. But I think his most popular, or at least most celebrated Batman run is the Joker War, which
I think really the Joker War, because he took over for Tom King, and I do want to give a shout out to his I don't have the exact issue numbers, but I personally liked his Detective Comics run a bit more under Batman. But I think, Joker War, I was surprised how much I liked it, because I was like, oh, it's another Joker retread, whatever, who the fuck is Punchline, and why should I give a shit? And it ended up being really enjoyable.
Although I have to say, I still have
don't give a shit about
Punchline.
I do not care. I don't give a shit
But the book is really good.
She's like Harley Quinn, but hotter. And I'm like, all right, whatever, bro. I don't give a shit.
Not a thing that I really wanted in my life.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't need more. It's just kind of like, okay, cool. But no, genuinely, I think he's probably one of my favorite ongoing writers.
Yeah, and if any of you have ever listened to even like one episode of this podcast, you will know how much we love his work. We basically squeeze it in anytime we can to talk about it. Like I said, he's got some more stuff coming out that I'm really excited to talk about, so he will be making even more appearances on the podcast. I have to agree with Corey. One of my favorites going on right now. He's one of the few. There's only a handful of comic book writers who, basically, no matter what they put out, I'll go try it. I'll pick it up for a couple issues, and he's on the list.
Absolutely. It's like it's a small list of him, Tom King, Jeff Lemire, Grant Morrison, and Kyle Starks. That is my go-to. Yeah. I mean, to me, honestly, all great writer calibers. I need Kyle Starks to write more things.
I kind of like that Kyle Stark. We've said this before. I think Kyle Starks' style lends itself to infrequent interludes, really.
We've talked about Kyle Starks. He's done Sex Castle, Rock Candy Mountain. Is it Rock Candy Mountain?
Yes. He's Rock Candy Mountain, which I always get, like, because it came out at the same time. I get confused in my head with the Shirtless Bear Fighter, which was not good, but Rock Candy Mountain's really good.
Rock Candy Mountain it's a 12-issue masterpiece, or two volume masterpiece at least. But let's talk about the artist though, real quick. So I'm not super familiar with this group.
Me neither. I did a lot of Googling. Sounds like I sound like an old ass man. I did a lot of research.
There you go. Just say research. Yeah. Googling just makes it sound like I went to the interwebs and I did some Googling.
Walked down to the public library and really.
I went on one of those Wikipedias.
I did some research on Deladera and Muerto, and I don't recognize them. I didn't recognize them, and I don't recognize any of their other work. Deladera has a website that you can that he has a lot of his art on there, and it's all very much in the same style as this. It's beautiful. I mean, I think his art style is very cool. I have some qualms not the right word. I have some feelings on whether or not it fits with this style of book, which we will cover later. I think Corey and I probably disagree on that, but yeah, I don't know. Usually we have a little bit more to say about this work, but I think this is very, very much their biggest work. This is what they're known for. I mean, even Werther's bio on Instagram is comic book artist and co-creator of Something Is Killing the Children, and his profile picture is a up close of Erica Slaughterhouse. So Erica Slaughterhouse, wow, Erica Slaughter.
And I wonder what this person did, because when I was it's like when I was kind of reviewing artists for this short comic that I worked on for this comic competition, and a lot of things I noticed when I was looking at people's stuff, especially horror artists, is they don't necessarily usually focus on people whenever in their portfolios. And what I've noticed in at least Something Is Killing the Children is the like design of the monsters, which is like very shadowed, but it's so horrifying. Yeah. That I feel like maybe that was like one of the initial like starting points from it, and maybe they worked backwards.
One of the things I'm surprised about this book is that they chose to show the monster so early on. Usually in a book like this, and I think a lot of that is due to Jaws. Honestly, I think people are just like obsessed with the fact that we don't see the shark in Jaws forever, and it's basically sort of taken this genre by storm. I mean, obviously, Alien is another big one that borrows.
Damn, you also are very correctly about like maybe like the Jaws kind of It does remind, in a way, like it does have a lot of story beats of Jaws.
This is very much like small town being terrorized by a
unseen
monster that only one like stoic hero can come into the town and save, and brings along the intrepid local to help them save it. It's very much in the style of Jaws. And listen, I fucking love Jaws, so it doesn't.
Yeah, no, I mean, let's just say, God, I wish I could just pull the fucking actor's name off the top of my head.
From Jaws.
Yeah, the fucking crazy one.
Oh my God, yeah, I should know his name. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, like, but
I'm gonna Google it.
The character who plays the boat captain. It's like, let's just take him and make him a blonde woman.
Robert Shaw.
Yes, exactly. Let's make him his character a blonde woman, and it works.
Yeah. Although I think less of an alcoholic. Robert Shaw, notoriously like insane.
Like
alcoholic.
the actor or the character?
Yeah, both. Okay. Honestly.
Because that character is crazy.
Yeah. Okay, now I kind of want to watch Jaws again.
I just watched it recently, man. But yeah, like it does, like it fits it perfectly.
Well, it's one of those things. There are a few touchstones in the American canon that have very much influenced basically everything going forward. And I don't think if you ask James Tynion if he did this on purpose, maybe he would say no or yes, but I don't think he would be upset at the comparison. I think this is very much the same way that like every love story for hundreds of years has sort of been Romeo and Juliet in a way. Not that, and I don't really like Romeo and Juliet, one of my least favorite Shakespeare plays, but that's a conversation for, I think, a different podcast. We'll keep Shakespeare out of the next time on podcast.
That's fair. I think that's very fair.
But yeah, I like I said, I wish I could say more about these two. Their art is very good. As far as like Deladera goes, looks like he's done a few Marvel books, some covers. He is credited on a Punisher War Journal annual, which I have to say I don't know. I haven't read, so my apologies to any of the Deladera fans out there, or if Deladera himself is listening. Art's great, but I don't really know anything about the guy, so. And I don't know if we can really expand on this segment of the podcast.
No, we can't. So let's keep it moving.
Yeah.
This is Something is Killing the Children.
Yeah, so why did we choose this book, Corey, is the real question.
Well, I picked this book because, like, last year, I think, it's one of those books I was wondering, like, looking back at my best of list. I read this, I think, on Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was the first two volumes.
Real happy holiday book, actually. It makes a lot of sense.
And listen, but it's like, I'm one of those weirdos that when I finish, I'm like, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what was the book about, Corey?
Well, in the same way that Jaws is a ton of fun, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
like, well, there's this monster that's killing some children. And, like, that's happy. I'm like, well, it was exciting.
There are obviously some very bleak, sad moments in this book. But
yes.
in a way that I think some of James Tynion stuff isn't. Like, I think we talked about, like, The Nice House on the Lake most recently. I loved it. I had a very hard time with the first two books. It for me personally was like very bleak, and I haven't gone back to revisit the third and I think now fourth issue, only because it's just like very sad. I will eventually because I love it so much, but
I think like when I finished the book, I was like, "Che, this was awesome," and you were like, "You like this?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
No, I don't think I said you like this because I did like it.
Well, no, I mean like I think I was just so like.
Yeah, it was not
weirdly.
It's not fun for me, I should say.
It's not. No, it's like I have. I realized as I gotten older, I'm weird, and I didn't know if I got that from doing 200 episodes of this podcast, and I didn't know that until very recently.
Normally, I'm the bleak guy of the podcast. I'll wear that hat happily, but on that occasion, I think you got me.
Yeah, no, I definitely took over for this, but
So this was nominated for the 2020 Eisner Award for Best New Series. The nominees were Doctor Doom by Chris Cantwell and Salvador Larocco.
It was fun.
Invisible Kingdom by G. Willow Wilson and Christian Ward. Once and Future by Kieran Gillen and Dan Mora. Obviously, Something is Killing the Children. And lastly, Undiscovered Country by Scott Snyder. It did not win. Corey, do you know? We don't really talk about the Eisner Awards on here. I'm not really sure.
Because we don't care about any
that's
other awards.
That's actually why.
But actually, the Eisner Awards are actually usually pretty good. I'm usually like sometimes people get snubbed, but I feel like they're nominations, which I feel like with comic books is a lot better because comic books are so easy to get through that you will just get a good list of books at the end.
And
I
also think, unlike the Oscars and the Emmys and maybe the Tonys, I don't really know anything about the Tonys. The people that are voting on the Eisner Awards read comic books, while the people that vote on the Oscars and Emmys don't watch TV and movies for some reason. But do you know what won out of that category?
I do not.
It's a book that we both read and we didn't like, so I was surprised to hear it.
Was it? What was it?
It's Invisible Kingdom.
You know what's crazy, man? I was actually Googling Invisible Kingdom now because I don't remember it.
This is the book we picked up because Christian Ward did the art on one of my all-time favorite Marvel books. The Jesus Christ, I'm blanking. The Black Bolt. I was gonna say Black Rose for some reason. The Black Bolt book, and the art style in this is very similar. I like G. Willow Wilson, and I did not think I think we read the first two issues for a podcast.
I think we called it a bad saga impression.
Yeah, and and because like we said, and usually the Eisner Awards are pretty good. I have, since looking this up, have thought maybe I should go back and revisit it, especially because it beat out Something's Killing the Children, I was going to talk about, is amazing, and Undiscovered Country, which I think is like fucking incredible, one of Scott Snyder's best works.
Also, I will put out, I think Once in Future, which does not deserve to, I mean, I hate to be like, it doesn't deserve to win it. I also think Once in Future is a very, very fun book.
Yeah. Kieran Gillen's another one of those guys who, like, if he's writing something, I'll probably give it a try.
He definitely has, like, a very, like, fun sense of, which I feel like James Tynion kind of has. James Tynion kind of leans a little bit more into, like, potential horror, but I feel like they both have books where I walked away, I'm like, oh, this is, like, really fun. And I think Once in Future is one of those books I feel like it's not, like, a super deep, like a deep, like, thought-provoking read, but I was like, it involves knights and your grandma has a big-ass gun. Yeah. That's fun.
I think it's the same. I think it touched into the same thing that people really loved about Die, right? His other pretty popular, more recent.
I think Once in Future is much better than Die.
Oh yeah, we agree, but also we don't like Die. And
I don't think.
I
think with
the rest of the universe loves Die for some reason.
It's weird. I think I've read most of Die, but I'm like, I don't like this.
I think I've read all of Die just because it's like, what does everyone see in this that I don't?
I don't know, man. I paid for every issue though, so I guess it's like, this is weird. Read. I don't know. It's such a weird thing where I'm like, I read the entire thing and I don't hate it. It's just like,
no.
I just don't get it.
Yeah.
And I like Dungeons and Dragons, which is like one of those, like, I feel like it was trying to tap into it. I'm surprised that they're not. I feel like Dungeons and Dragons movie is just going to be the plot of Die.
You think so? I hope.
Oh yeah.
I hope they don't do the, like, basically Jumanji thing where they drop them into a video game.
I think they're gonna do. I think I pitched the idea for it during our Dungeons and Dragons podcast.
You did. That's
true. Dungeons and Dragons movie idea, and I think you guys should go listen to that because it's just Che and I losing our mind. Which is most episodes, but I think that one was particularly pretty good.
I think the book club episodes show a different side of us, where we actually prove to people we were like a little bit intelligent.
Yeah,
it's
this is when we actually
all
smart.
of the other episodes where it's just us going slowly
just
crazy,
screaming. It's like, oh wait, these guys actually. There should be two different podcasts. One of us is like smoking cigars in front of a fireplace. The other one is just like us losing our mind and doing shots in a fucking
screaming at a wall.
But yes. Do you feel like we should there should be like kind of like a precursor before people like get into this book?
I was thinking about that, and not as far as plot. You can go into this. Obviously, this is a wholly original work. It doesn't exist in a canon or anything like that. It doesn't exist in a universe. But I do think it is. This would not be because it's not his best work. We'll debate whether or not it is or not. I don't think this would be my first pick for a James Tynion book. I think somebody should read some of his other stuff before coming into this, only because I think a lot of the fun of this is seeing the reflex of his styles in other places. I think
if I was like gonna be a person like just trying to get into his work, I would check out The Woods, which is a darker, but like it's a very like easy concept. A high school gets transported into some desolate alien planet, and they have to figure out how to survive there. And his like Detective Comics and Batman run, which are just fun they're very fun Batman runs. But like I wouldn't suggest the Department of Truth as a first point. Not Nice as a like just because both of them are pretty bleak. Even the Batman TMT is pretty fun too, and I feel
that's what I would say is my. Maybe I'm crazy for that, but that's what I would.
Actually, no, I think that's actually a really good mix of things because it's like, it's I've seen it be like made fun of the internet to death, but there's this scene where like it's just like out of context it's so silly, but like in the context of the book it's actually a pretty like it's a good. I feel like people are gonna be like, Corey, you're a fucking idiot for this. But I genuinely do like the scene where Batman and Raphael are in the alley where Batman's parents died, which like in retrospect it sounds really dumb, and it like by itself it's just like, this is where my parents died.
Yeah,
Raphael.
It's not a great sentence.
It's not a great sentence, and I feel like I'm like selling it really poorly. But like in the context of the story, it makes sense, and you're not rolling your eyes.
Yeah.
But like a person I work with, that's like actually like they're like. Slack icon is that scene. Like, this is where my parents died. Raphael.
I'm not sure I would put that as my like work icon, but
more
power to them, I guess.
Yeah, hey, no, they're in a position of power that they can do that. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend the Backstagers as getting into it, because the Backstagers is very similar to like Lumberjanes, where it doesn't reflect his style. It's a lot more. I don't want to say it's for kids, because there's like I don't want to give anything away, but there's a really harsh twist at the end of the first volume or first or second volume. So I recommend giving that a read. It's only like 2 volumes, but yeah, I wouldn't put this as like my jumping in point for James Tynion. I'm not saying you couldn't do this. I'm just saying if you want to kind of get like a better feel of his style, there's like steps you can take before you jump into this.
Yeah, that's, I mean, but again, like we said, or it's not, doesn't exist in a universe. It's not a continuation of a story. Although there is going to be an expanded Something Is Killing the Children universe. I don't know if you saw. There is
I didn't.
I think it's called House of Slaughter coming out.
That's interesting.
For Boom Studios. That is I guess a prequel maybe, or
Guess it's kind of focusing.
It's a spin-off with I assume Erica Slaughter. I don't know. It was just announced the other day. The first cover looks really sick. So
I wonder what they're gonna do with that, because I haven't read the 3rd volume yet because I was waiting for my comic book to get it since June, comic store. But
are you hoping they're listening to this and like you've shamed them into giving it to you? Or
I
something?
didn't shame them. It's probably in my pull box right now. I'm not shaming them. It's just been like, come on, bro. I was trying to read this book for fucking ever.
There's an announcement headline for this. I'll just read it.
Yeah.
So, House of Slaughter #1 drops us off at a boarding school for sad goth monster hunters. So it sounds like a prequel. Sounds pretty cool.
That is true. Well, I mean, I was gonna bring up, like, when we get to the book story, I kind of wanted to bring up like I thought a very interesting twist on it, and a way to keep readers coming back into it was very well done.
Well, why don't we do that now? Why don't we give a quick rundown of this first volume of Something Is Killing the Children?
Sure. Well, the book opens up with a group of kids at a sleepover, I believe, right? And they're telling scary stories to one another about like what they made up or what they maybe have seen in their dreams and all that good stuff. Our main character, James, come on, James.
Well, it is.
He does look like him, and it's funny. Like the character very much looks like him.
I think it's pretty intentional, but
yes.
I also kind of like that, like. Not just because it's literally James Tynion's name, but I also kind of like that James is just like one of those names of like a throwaway character. He's not, unlike Erica Slaughter, it's not supposed to be memorable. Like the whole point of James's character is that he's a normal guy.
And I forgot that James was like the character's name.
Yeah.
Because like when I read it, I'm like, oh yeah, like you don't remember anybody's name in the book really besides Erica Slaughter.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, very intentional.
Yeah.
But yeah, the book opens up with the kids talking about like scary stories, and then suddenly it shifts to James in a interrogation room where he's talking to a police officer about his friends who were found, I mean, just slaughtered. I was trying to give a better word, but it was just like they were just
maimed. I think there's an accusation that he's not the police officer, but later a kid yells at James his intestines were in the tree. So obviously not just murdered, but
it's like
slaughtered. Is I think
slaughtered exactly. And then you get the great. It feels like a horror movie, or kind of like one of those like. I'm trying to think of a very like jump cut of a title. I'm like having trouble.
The title cards in these books I think are very very cinematic and very well done. You have these like very distinct intros to every book, and then boom, Something Is Killing the Children title card. I think it works really well, and I'm surprised more comic books don't do it, because I actually think that's a really cool way to split up the pacing of your stories. Especially with this, like you said, it's very reminiscent of a horror movie where you get the like intro to the characters or maybe intro to the villain or something, and then you get boom, it's Halloween, and then the actual story starts. So.
And then we like get introduced to our, I don't want to say protagonist, but I don't know. I don't really know. Is she considered the main character?
I would say yes.
Yes. Yeah. We get introduced to Erica Slaughter.
She's getting her own spin-off, and I think she's on the cover
very
of almost all of the books of this, besides one. Yeah.
Yeah.
The covers are like, all her, and then one James cover. So I think she's the main character.
Yeah. So I actually did not read the second volume again, just so I didn't want to like muddle my brain before I was doing this. So I can't remember.
The second volume is quite different. Like there's a big twist at the end of the first book that really changes the trajectory of the books. So
yeah. So we get introduced to Erica, who comes out of the woods looking like a fucking monster and an insane person.
Love the character design. Love
the character design. Love the mask. Love how giant her eyes are with like their dark circles. It's just like
genuinely terrifying.
She genuinely looks like a fucking crazy person. But she's just finished killing.
Think I would want to hang out with her.
No. Yeah, but she just finished killing a monster in a different town, and she gets the phone call that she needs to go to James's town in order to hunt the monster. We find James back at his high school being bullied because people believe that he killed the children. He's getting relentlessly bullied by it.
Can we take a quick pause here?
Yes.
Just address this. It's a little bit of a nitpick. I don't want to. We might maybe should save this for nitpick section, but I think it's good to address here. I know kids are terrible. I'm aware.
These kids came from the Stephen King school of bad people.
Yeah, what is this? I just don't think, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are a bunch of high school or middle school kids out there that if some kid went through the horror of having to watch all of his friends, or even like not even friends, like if you like this guy is accusing them of not being his actual friends, like acquaintances, but either way, having to watch a bunch of his classmates get fucking murdered. I just don't think I would believe that he did it, especially if their fucking intestines were found in a tree.
It's kind of the same thing too. Like when I had a nitpick about, I can't remember which Stranger Things season it was. It might have been the second one where the kids were like he was like, "Hey, you dead kid" or whatever. They were making fun of like Will for like being like essentially kidnapped or whatever, and they were like, "Hey, this guy's like, fuck you for getting kidnapped." I'm like, why would you make fun of a kid who's
crazy?
Like,
it's like a crazy.
It was just an insane thing to do. I can't like. I mean, like maybe. Listen, I didn't go to school with like nice people, but right. I don't think necessarily they were like, hey, you went missing for months on end, and then you came back, and then we're gonna make fun of you for that.
It's not even a sick roast. It's like
it's not. It's like more like thank you, like this traumatizing part of my life has happened. I don't
maybe
think
we
it's
just
like
had like weirdly good high school experiences, but I don't think kids are like this.
No, but and then we get introduced to like after James like yells at them to shut the fuck up. So of course, being high school, the person who gets bullied gets sent to the principal's office.
Although this is not my favorite part. We were talking about favorite part in a second. My second favorite part of the first volume. This is a great interaction. Shows so much about the world we live in and like the characters. And the principal isn't really a major character going forward or anything like that. I don't even know. Does he show back up at all? I don't remember.
Not in the first volume at least.
But I just love that how it shows that for some reason, all the adults have figured out that this child didn't murder all his friends, but none of the kids know.
It's like anybody who has a brain is like, yeah, this kid didn't do it. But everyone who's like a bit of an idiot seems to have. But yeah, no, it's just amazing interaction with the principal where like it could easily be, they'll be like, don't do this. It's just like, why didn't you punch him? You should have punched him. And it was like, he's like the principal.
I have to agree with the principal on this one.
And the principal seems like he's like not supposed to be like, he says he's like, I guess supposed to be in his like late 20s, but he looks so like the way that the artist draws him, he just looks so tired and like, just like he looks like just done over it. Cause like, I mean like he's only on page for, what is it? Literally one page is interaction.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's one of my favorite parts. He's just, he's like, a principal shouldn't like, this is a line that he says to a kid. It's like, they're all dead and nobody fucking cares. Yeah. And then apologizes. Like, it's I don't know, the interaction, clearly these two know each other. Like, you can tell from this conversation that he's been there a lot. But it's just like this feeling over the town where everyone's like, there are so many missing children. And like, there's something clearly wrong with this picture and no one knows what to do.
Yeah. I just think even, and I guess like you said, I can't really remember if he shows up in the second volume or anything like that, but he's such a great avatar for like the town itself, like the emotions that are going on in the town. Like you have this guy who feels so hopeless. We see later the cops feel the same way. So it's not that nobody's doing anything. It's that like, how the fuck are the cops going to find something that they can't see?
Yeah.
And it's just all these kids are disappearing. And then that lends itself to why we see later how these police officers end up being but end up eventually being receptive to Erica's help, but because they have no other options. Like they are feeling the same way this principal is, that like all these kids are dying and there's nothing we can do about it. So.
And yeah, exactly. And it's like, I mean, it lends to like the belief, like they're at the point where it's just like, we have no other options. Mm-hmm. We don't know what the fuck's going on. Like they're at that point because I think, and I'm looking through the book now, every page isn't like intentional, which I feel like sometimes in comic books, could be very like, you could be taking up space, you're just filling up time as you get from point to point. But I love that it goes from the interaction with the principal where they're like, we don't know what to do. And then Erica shows up to town and we kind of get the actual image of how many missing children there are, which is like at least 30, which is like stark, and they're like, that's what it is. And then you have the cop immediately clocking her, so we know exactly what's happening there. Then we get James trying to get in contact with his father, who's, I mean, you know, your kid gets accused of murder, I'm assuming, doesn't really do a lot of great things for your psyche.
Yeah.
Not saying that you shouldn't be there for him for sure.
But also just like the whole town is. I mean, we see later Tommy and Tommy's father. Like everyone in this town's been broken by this.
Yeah.
Which is obviously understandable.
Yeah, and I love Erica as a character because like she doesn't have like a lot of, like, she doesn't usually say more than 2 to 3 sentences.
Yeah.
But it like keeps the conversation going so well that it's just like, oh, I want to like, and like she's mysterious and likable enough that you just want to keep on like learning more about it. And I also think her character design is so well done. Just like she looks like she's not, doesn't belong for sure. Like you don't see her mouth moving sometimes, and her eyes are ginormous. She just has like something, a mark on her head. Like something is like off about this woman, and I love that. I love a good monster hunter design. One of my favorite tropes in like horror things. Yeah, and then we get more of like what happened that night and just the horrifying nature to what these children were killed at, because they do not pull any punches with what you see in this book. Which shit, I mean, it's fucked up. And then we get our first reveal of what the monster looks like, which is fucking horrifying.
Yeah, terrifying. I'm interested. I don't think it's a bad choice. I was just surprised when on page. I'm just double checking here, looking at its. Page,
I have the hard copy. They do not have any.
Page 24 is when we see the monster. Page 24, book 1 is the first time we see the monster.
Yeah, like the centipede looking motherfucker.
Actually, let me. I'll bring it up because we've got a video that maybe will see the light of day. So yeah, I have it on screen now. This is the first scene of the monster, and like Corey said, it's fucking terrifying. Especially after this scene here, where we just watch a bunch of kids get murdered, and then we flip to this page and terrifying ant monster. Yeah. And I
love James's characterization after that, because like he's seen this, and then the final page of the first issue it says, Erica's like, you got a monster in those woods. That's why I'm here. I'm gonna kill it. Pause for a beat. Can I help?
Yeah.
It's like that's like you have like it's just
great first issue. Great intro.
Great first issue.
To all these characters to this world we're in, and it's one of the most difficult skills I think in comic books. And the example that I always go back to in my head is because it was one of the first things we ever talked about on the podcast is pacing in issues. And somebody who's an amazing writer is about to have his own fucking superhero movie. Ta-Nehisi Coates, his first endeavor into comic book writing, the biggest issue I had with Black Panther, and we've referenced it over and over again, is he didn't really understand how to pace the issues.
Yes.
As a collection, Black Panther, that first run of his is still
really well done.
Incredible.
It's like
I think
it
maybe
reads
one of
like
the best of the character.
Yeah, it reads like a book, but as a single issue comic. Like there's like we've always talked about this. I think we always kind of give some comics some flack for how bad a first issue could be.
Yeah. Or
like not bad, but I mean how much if it doesn't grip you.
Right.
And I think that's what at least Something is Killed in the Children. It grips you with that like immediately. Like you like can sense like the anger from this kid. You have our character who's just assured that like yeah I'm gonna fucking kill the monster. Don't worry about it.
Right.
And you just want to see this town like. You feel like I don't know. I felt like angry at this monster in a sense, where being like, this isn't like something needs to kill this motherfucker, or something.
And it's the economy of storytelling. Like it is a reality of the comic book industry that you are competing with every single week, like 100 different issues of a comic, and you have to make readers decide whether or not if they want to pick you up. Or they want to pick up Adventure Man issue 6 or whatever it may be. And you have 24 pages, sometimes 34 pages. But you have a very small amount of time to get readers to want to come back for issue 2. And the number of comic books that I've read one issue of and put down and never gone back to that maybe ended up being really great is probably really high. But it's just, There's only so many hours in the fucking day, and James Tynion just knows how to get you.
Exactly.
There's no way I'm not picking up issue 2 after this last page.
Which I will say now, though, it's like a good thing about the trade, the fact that we get trade comic books now, and they're much more readily available. You don't have to be as good as your first issue, admittedly, because now these books are coming out, like the first volume will be out for like $10. So that's a lot more easy to be like, okay, I'll pick up that book. Like, I picked up this book, just like because I knew James Tynion, title grabbed me, and I liked the art from the first couple pages. But I think reading the first issue made me read the entire book in one go instead of just being like, that was a good first issue. I'll come back and finish picking up the book as time goes on.
Right.
But then yeah, so let's start blazing through this book.
Yeah, 'cause we're only on issue 1.
Yeah, exactly. Issue 1. Issue 2 now is we find another character that we're going to be introduced to, Tommy. He's a manager at Applebee's, and it is Applebee's. I didn't say that wrong.
I know. So what's the other one? There's another one in here that he's.
Oh, I didn't notice.
You keep going. I'll look. I'll try to find it.
Okay, cool. And then so he's a manager at Applebee's. And his sister is one of the kids who has gone missing. He lives with his mother still, and his mother is clearly just done with everything, and she's asking to put up posters, but it's clear that this town has been experienced for a long time because he's I'm not supposed to put them up anymore, but she's it'll make me feel better if you keep doing it. But it's kind of
I found it, by the way. It's issue 4, House Depot instead of Home Depot, which I loved. When she's behind the chainsaws.
Love it.
Continue.
Yes, so he's a manager at Applebee's, and Erica and Tommy enter and ask for a table so they can start laying out their plan for where the monsters are, where the monster is.
Yeah.
Of course, this raises suspicion because the people who work there are fucking assholes.
Well, she's also yes, they're assholes. They're a little bit why do you care what happens in this place? You're on your minimum wage job, whatever. But also, she doesn't do herself any favors. She comes in and is like, "Hey, can I live here?" It's her
yeah,
first.
More or less. That's it.
It's a weird intro to these two people, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, but so basically, Tommy goes suspicious, why is this woman in our restaurant? And then basically, he's a straight white man with being a douchebag. And basically, yeah, he tries to stop her from not stop her, I don't know. He's just you're doing something wrong, and she's fuck off, and he keeps on being aggressive, and then ends up being in a semi fight. She leaves the restaurant, and this horrible interaction with the other woman who works there to James. So what is it? You in some kind of cult of Satan thing? You cut their heads off and do weird shit to them? To a child.
Well, it's also very weird because, and maybe the art style doesn't exactly communicate this, but on the page it reads very casual. She just walked up to them and said that, it was hey, what's the weather today? That's what it looks like and sort of reads like. But obviously, even if you were crazy enough to say that sort of thing to a child, you wouldn't be so you in a satanic death cult? Huh?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's not how you would say it.
And you do things to the severed heads? What? But yeah, so Tommy's she's suspicious, so he calls the police, and the police show up, and then they're you're arrested for doing nothing because they're the police. I don't know. They're desperate for something, basically. The police are reaching, and the sheriff character is actually very excellent. This is our first introduction to him.
But that's the thing I actually really like, and we will get to favorite characters later in the book. I really like Tommy's character because he's desperate, and we see. I love that we start this book with an introduction to his home life at the moment. Him and his mother is clearly just, beside herself, and we see, I think one of the best panels in this whole book is the panel of her, I'll bring it up on the screen, the panel of her sitting at the table, and it's just a small detail, but the number of cigarettes in the ashtray it just says everything you know about this character. She's just been chain smoking for days and days. It's piled up to the top of the
she's only been there for a day.
Right. So it's it's just really smart character design, and there's showing and telling about a character, and that's why I really not that Tommy's a likable character, as you said, he acts like a douchebag, but he's a believable character.
He's a believable character. Yeah, he's the character he's believable, which is the most frustrating thing about the character in my mind, where it's just I get it, but it's one of the, you always see those characters in movies because the characters don't know what we know,
right?
And where it's just he's trying to stop our character from doing the right thing, not because he's a bad person, but because he believes this is the right course of action.
And he's desperate for anything.
Yes, and would it make sense for this person, for a person who just showed up in town, to have murdered your sister months at a time, and it happens to be? It doesn't make any fucking sense at all. Yeah. But hey, you're at this point in your life, you don't know this.
And as I said, Erica is not equally culpable, but she's culpable in this because she doesn't do herself any favors.
No,
she doesn't try to be kind and accepting to these people. She makes herself out to be a villain from the beginning, even though we know she isn't.
Yes.
But yeah, so we can move on to the third issue.
Yeah, the third issue, I mean, like, basically we get Erica gets picked up by the police, and then we have our first real interaction with the sheriff. And it's just like, I mean, like, I don't want to go through the entire thing. It's just a really good interrogation scene.
Yeah. We will cover it later, don't worry.
Yes. The interrogation scene's great. Basically, Erica is, like, set up in some, like... This is the first hint that, like, we're getting Erica set up through, some kind of secret society, whatever, where they're, like, can call someone, get them out of prison kind of style. Like, the whole, like...
powerful secret society.
Yes. Like, the great trouble, like, you're gonna get a phone call, I'm gonna get out of here, basically. And it's like, they called my phone, my personal phone, and asked for you. And I'm like, that is... Oh, no, that's scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Erica gets let out, and she beats up with James again. And after a brief interaction, we kind of see Erica's on the end of her rope. They decide that they need to get some fucking weapons. And it was like, I'm noticing now the last page of each book is very much like, oh fuck, yeah, let's see what's going on next. Because the end of the second issue is with the weird octopus monster. This issue is, let's go guys to get some fucking chainsaws, basically. And then yeah, Erica goes to House Depot, as Che mentioned, and buys a bunch of shitty chainsaws. And the guy's like, okay, sure. She does seem like a fucking psychopath, though, if you kind of just see this woman showing up. She's not doing herself any favors at all.
Well, that's one of my notes for my favorite moments in the book is that page where she's buying she's clearly buying the chainsaws to kill something in this town where dozens of children have been murdered. And this guy, what's his name?
I don't know, but he was like very drunk in a previous issue at the bar.
Henry, our House Depot attendant, is just very willing to sell her a bunch of chainsaws and axes to kill something. And my note was, Henry, what are you doing? I mean, I guess it works out that he sold it to her, but
yeah, it's just
what are you doing, my guy?
I don't know. It's like I'm like the town itself is very off just because of the way it's established. And I think I've seen James like write. He's very good at like picking like taking a society and just like putting them in a situation that makes them all act erratic. And I think the best example of that was The Woods, where it's just a regular high school, and being put in this hostile environment has like changes everyone so drastically and what the rules they have to apply by. But yeah, and I mean like so yeah, she buys some chainsaws, and Tommy goes to his drunken dad's trailer and takes his gun to do something with it.
Yeah.
And then we go back to the sheriff and his brother, the coroner, or like what is it? Is that the right word for it? Is it coroner?
Yeah.
And they find another body, and basically he was like, "What the fuck do you think?" It's like a giant hole in the wall, and it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, he said, "What could make this hole in the wall, but also leave no tracks?" Which I wonder is a suggestion that there actually are no tracks, or adults can't even see the remnants of these things.
No, I think they
there
can
are
see
tracks if you're a kid, but you can't see them if you're an adult.
That might make sense at least. Yeah, I think that kind of does make sense, honestly.
I think either way, they can't see something, but I wonder if the suggestion is that these things actually don't leave any trace at all, or you can't even see that you can't see their tracks or like scratch marks or whatever if you're an adult.
Yeah, and I mean even though we get like the whole explanation of like what the monsters are, even then it's just like I like how it's like not like there's some in-depth explanation. Be like, monsters exist. Why? Because you thought it up. That's pretty much what it is. It's like that's just how shitty this world is.
It's another one of my notes that I think is like sort of beautifully dark and terrifying is that believing is death. The only people that are safe from these monsters are people that don't believe in them, which is usually just sort of a reverse of course, like how most horror movies are. Is like,
but even then we do end up seeing that the monsters even start attacking the people who don't see them, like because it goes after Tommy. Because so Tommy gets the gun, he knocks out the police officer who's been tailing Erica and
Well,
James.
Does it go after Tommy before he can see it?
I'm trying to re-register this. It doesn't attack him directly.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's going to at least because it's like, So Tommy knocks out the cop and Erica's like finds the monster's cave, and she's about to go in for the kill. I mean, a bunch of action scene shit happens. It's awesome. I'm just trying to get through the end of the book at this point.
Yeah.
Action scenes like, oh yeah, and then like, so James is with Erica. He tries to go in to save her because the evil octopus monster, we don't know much about him either, tells him to go in and do it. Tommy accidentally shoots James. And the book kind of ends with James and Tommy and everybody. Oh, and Tommy also gets hit in the head with some weird spike shit, which makes him be able to see the monster. More on that at 11. And yeah, so they all get to go back to the hospital, and basically we get the final.
We did skip over. They find a girl in the cave who's still alive.
Yes, they do.
Bian, I guess is how you say it. Bian.
I think so.
But yeah,
I think that sounds right.
They find one living child in this horrifying death cave.
And then, like, at the end of the book, even though she does kill the monster, we get the unsettling fact is that this was more of a nest, and there's going to be more children. There's going to be more death, and, like, she basically needs backup. And
again,
that's, like, the...
Just more proof that Tynion is, like, so good at this stuff, so good at pacing. We get the first beat on issue 1 that makes you gets you stuck with it. You're like, oh, I want to read the rest of this. And then this amazing beat at the end of book 5, which is the end of volume 1. And you're like, oh, I got to read volume 2 going forward. And to your point, I think a lot of people probably picked this up as a trade because it got a lot of plaudits at the end of the year, and a lot of people put
the last 2
list and something.
I think
and
the first 2 volumes were out at the end of the year, or at least like
Yeah.
the first 2 arcs, and at least in single issues. So, and I read it through Comixology, like, so I was like, I remember I was just like, okay, gotta buy the next one. Then I got to the end of it, I'm like, fuck, I wish I discovered this series like 5 years later.
Yeah.
I
But
feel like
luckily,
that's my
unlike our boy Jeff Johns, James actually writes comic books. So he'll put out comic books. Don't worry.
Yes, he will.
Sorry, Johns. I didn't mean to get you straight there, but Doomsday Clock did take 2 fucking years for you to publish.
Yeah, that was pretty shitty. I mean, I'll throw him some flack for that. That was some horse shit.
Should we take a quick break and we'll come back and talk about some of our favorite moments in this?
Sure
in this
thing.
book? All right.
I mean, money can't just make people appear. Excuse me. I'm looking for Troy Barnes. Pierce Hawthorne sent me. Hey, Troy. Hi. I'm LeVar Burton.
Pierce got LeVar Burton to come here for Troy? Is there anyone he can't produce?
Now I'm really getting mad. Why am I the only one he decided to torture?
I told Pierce 1,000 times I never wanted to meet LeVar in person. I just wanted a picture. You can't disappoint a picture. I hate you, Pierce. I hate you so much.
And we're back.
What's up?
All right, we're going to talk about some of our specifically some of our favorite parts. Although I think we previewed a lot of this in the plot summary. But before we get into what's really great about this book, points of criticism. I don't think either of us have like a ton bad to say about this. But Corey, do you have anything that you thought maybe wasn't working so well in this first volume of Something's Killing the Children?
I don't think so, actually. I think nothing. I think it does such a good job of like slow world building, where in a book I didn't expect to be world building. Kind of like in John Wick, in the sense of like, this is like cool about this assassin. This is really cool, but in the background you got the whole like continental shit.
Yeah.
I think this kind of does a bit of a better job in a sense than John Wick does, where I get a little bit more of a trickle in, but like,
And you see
I don't know,
way more of that in the following volumes. Like
volume
two
two.
is much more about that than
Which I think is a good idea, because like you have the Monster Hunter thing, but now you have the more interesting thing you're going to explore now are the going to be like, what's this society thing about? It's a good hook.
I
but
just
I don't
realized
really...
sort of exactly how John Wick is. Like the first one is like hints of that, and then the second one is much more about the Assassin's world.
Yeah, no, I think you're very like, and I think that's a
John Wick meets Jaws. Apparently, is what this book is. Didn't realize that until we started doing this podcast.
John Wick meets Jaws. If Stranger Things had the bad ending from the get-go.
Yeah.
If instead of like one kid disappearing, the entire group died and one kid was left behind.
Yeah. How many kids ultimately die in Stranger Things? It's just one, right? Just one kid dies.
Nah, it was only at least in the first season they only killed
Barb.
Was her name Molly?
Barb.
Barb. It was Barb. It was Barb.
And then the whole
Yeah,
internet
they-
like lost their mind over this character that had like 6 lines, I think.
Yeah, I guess so. I think they were mad because a nerdy best friend died.
Why?
I don't know, man. Shit, nerds get attached to things.
I guess.
Let's talk about this comic book.
All right. My point of criticism, and I did hint at this a little bit. I like the art. I just want to preface that by saying I think the art is well done. I think that and it's always hard. I have a hard time doing this where I like try to imagine different styles of art, and the one that came to my mind is Jacob Phillips' art for That Texas Blood. I think if it was that style of art, which I'm going to I can bring up on screen in a second when I search through my comic book library. But I think this like more realistic but also quite colorful and stylized version of and I think a lot of that is because like this we have this small town energy in That Texas Blood too that I would really like. I think that sort of art style would work better, and I'm gonna bring it up on screen here. This sort of style is just I think more fitting to like the tone of Something's Killing Children. Corey, you're looking at me in a way that suggests you don't agree with me.
Oh no, I wasn't looking at you like that at all. I mean I don't agree with you, but I don't. I understand where you're coming from, honestly. Yeah. And I think for the sense of me, the reason I like the art style so much is because it's like it does a good job to me at least fluctuating between like calmness and quiet, like the quietness of it, and like this pure chaotic like. It's like where you can go from like people are having a very somber looks on their face and discussing things, and the horrified expressions on people's faces when they're getting torn apart by the monsters.
Yeah.
I don't know. Me personally, I really like the art style to it.
I think the art's really cool.
I can understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I like how the fact is like whenever it's dark in this book, something bad's happening.
There are moments of like real brilliance, and I like we already said, I think the Erica Slaughter character design is perfect, and it's possible with any other art style we lose how that really works on the page, like the way that she sort of is like ageless. Like you could tell me she's 12 or 35 and I'd believe
Yeah, they were
you.
like, she's too old to be your sister. Like, how the fuck old do you think she is?
Yeah,
I'm wondering, like she seems like she's like early 20s, but maybe she's like 35. Who fucking knows?
Right, and there's something that's not quite human about her, but obviously she is human.
I think her character design is so well done. I think that's what it is to me. It's just she like just like gives off like you can tell that like something's wrong with her in comparison to everybody else.
Right.
Everyone else seems kind of normal, and she like kind of like huge eyes. She wears a fucking mask with monster teeth on them.
Such a sick mask.
Yeah, she stands out, which
Too
I think
bad.
is like.
Too bad this book is probably not popular for that to be a Halloween costume, because I think
that would be a good
sick
one.
costume.
Especially in this, I think the sequel one, there's even like a dude who like look like it's like his a very equally cool costume, I think as well.
Although everyone's gonna be Squid Game this year, so.
I mean, I almost was Squid Game this year, so
I think 4 of my coworkers said they were bought Squid Game costumes.
It's just fucking easy, man. There's nothing else has been going on.
Yeah,
this
but
year,
everyone else is gonna do that. You do it.
Yeah, I mean, I was Spider-Man once, and there was about 12 other Spider-Man there. It was only Spider-Man. It was kind of fucking funny. It was even punk rock Spider-Man. I was like, that was like, wow, good for that.
Spider-Ham is the only Halloween Spider-Man costume I respect in the year 2021. If you're any other Spider-Man, you get no love from me. If you're Spider-Ham, that's hot shit.
I'm going as Miles Morales again, guys, this year because I did not have time to buy a costume, so Chase is dunking on me.
Yeah, I am.
That's fine. I deserve it.
Any other points of criticism about this book?
No, not to me. I really don't have I don't have anything bad to say about this book. I think it's a 10 out of 10 for me, honestly.
I am not disagreeing with you. I'm not.
I know. I mean, listen, I think art is very subjective to taste. Yeah. And I think also we're both not artists, so I always feel kind of weird being like, art bad. Except if you're Greg Land, then you're just a fucking tracer, and you're a horrible. You should not be hired
There's
anywhere.
Some random people are catching strays in this episode.
No. Greg Land can always get a fucking stray. He fucking sucks.
I'm not here to defend anybody.
Guys, Google Greg Land and just Google Greg Land tracing, and you'll see why I'm fucking annoyed that he has a fucking a career.
Does he still have a career? What's the last?
Yeah, he did a book recently. I don't remember which book it was. I saw it. So I'm like, this art sucks. Oh, it's fucking Greg Land, isn't it? And as soon as you like, I recognize this picture from somewhere else. That's when you notice him because he just copies stock images.
Yeah. As we've always said about comic book art in particular, great comic book art can elevate a book. I don't think there's many books that are bad scripts and good art, and we're like, what a great book, because just put up
You gotta
some
have
stuff
it
on your
together.
DeviantArt page or whatever. And bad art can really lower the quality of a book. But when you find that right marriage, that's the most perfect thing. I mean, my example, just because it's topical, is another of James Tynion's work that we've talked about. The Department of Truth art is, I think, the perfect combination between that story and that style. And even when we get that those 2-issue sort of detours in after the first volume, where we get 2 new artists and they're like prequel or other stories, like side stories, even those art styles really work. And I think that is what I thought was missing in a sense from Something's Killing Children for me, where I like the art. I think it's beautiful. The colors are amazing. Like you said, when it's dark on page in particular, I think the art really pops. I just don't know if I had a moment where I was like, wow, this book is really elevated by how good this art is. That's
I guess I can understand what you're saying. I think it's more. I think to me personally, it's just like I think the art. Like if I was gonna tell the story, I would pick the same artist.
Yeah.
I think there's like I probably could research and probably find another artist I like that does like horror well. But I think at least for this, I like how messy it is.
Yeah.
I like how sketchy it is because it just makes everything feel a little bit off.
I'm looking over at my comic book shelf to see if there's any other artists I would have really loved besides
so
Jacob Phillips.
Mike, I mean, obviously my favorite horror artist is Mike Mignola, and I wouldn't put him on this book.
The art team from Redlands, mostly because of how similar the stories are in a way, I think would actually be really cool. I'm just opening up Redlands. We have Jordi Belair and Vanessa Del Rey, another one of my favorites. I'm holding it up to the camera and it's backwards, so I don't know if that helped literally anybody. But
sorry, I was staring up at my comic book shelf as well, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't really collect a lot of like. I mean, I keep on saying I want to collect more comics, but I have no more room for comics. Chase sent me the fucking the copy of the Paper Girls like compendium, and I'm like,
it's so big too. I looked up.
I got the Saga one. It's like I have the big Saga one with like all 50 issues, and like that's like already huge. But
yeah,
I'm gonna buy that as soon as I come across it.
I'm doing the thing where I'm waiting. I'm waiting on Gideon Falls to do the collection, which they're never going to do because they hate me. All right, so let's move on.
I'm sure they're going to do it next year.
Well, they're doing 2 collections. I want the whole thing in one.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what they did for Paper Girls. They put like 3 volumes out of like the hardcover, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get that. Then you send me that thing. I'm like, oh, perfect. I'm gonna buy that because I want Something Is Killing Children. Can you please do that as well? Thank you.
Jokes on Corey. I already got him a fat ass book for his for the holidays, so he's gonna have to find some room for that.
Don't buy Gideon Falls, all right? Because you keep on saying it. You're like, I got a friend just like you who's like, oh man, like what are you getting for Christmas? I'm like, oh, I got this thing. Like, oh, I already bought that for myself. I'm like,
I'm not buying Gideon Falls. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Do we need to talk about what's in the what is good section? I think we've really addressed.
We kind of covered. I think everything that I've said is good. So what's our favorite stuff, Jack?
Yeah. So first off, favorite characters. I think obviously Erica Slaughter is the best character in this book, for obviously intentional reasons. She's the main character. She's just very, very fun. And one I wanted to shout out that I already did before, Tommy Mahoney, who, as we already said, is frustrating because he, in a way, in a sense, is a villain of the book in a way. Like he stands in our character's way, but I just love that he's so believable. Like this is how people would act if they were in this world, I think. But any other characters you want to shout out besides Erica and Tommy?
No. I think the sheriff. I think the sheriff is really good.
Sheriff is really cool.
I like the sheriff because I think I was going to mention that this is a very different book without Erica, but I think the book would still work in a sense of like this town, kids are missing, and the sheriff's like at the end of his rope and trying to figure out what the hell's happening. I think without the monster, like if you don't see the monster, this could be a very interesting like detective story or whatever. But I like the sheriff as like his character. I think he gets a little bit more screen time as well in the later books, as well as his coroner brother, who I also really like because he just doesn't really like. He's like, I've been drinking today, and he's like, come on, man. It's like I didn't expect to be murders in the middle of the day. You told me it's gonna be an easy job, and he's like, they told me the same thing. So very much like Jaws.
Just like Jaws.
Just like Jaws.
Or just like Alien, or just like all the other 10 different things that
true.
ripped off.
Yes,
from Jaws.
that's what I like about it. The sheriff is the same sheriff as he is in Jaws.
Yeah,
it's the same exact character.
Well, I would say this sheriff is at least slightly more competent because at least he knows when you need to accept help. The mayor in Jaws is like actively trying to get people murdered by a shark.
Yes,
He's like,
absolutely.
They'll close the beach for what? Fuck all them kids. Let them.
I guess this is like if Jaws kept going for 3
Yeah,
months, and then we came later on. He's just like, yeah, fuck it.
If there were
whatever,
like
man.
30 kids dead instead of 2, then yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to favorite art and panels. I've got a few nominations that we will blaze through. I just want to open with Corey already referenced this. I'm going to bring it up on the screen. We have the book 1, page 9. This is the 2 weeks later after we get that brutal introduction to the book. And then we see Erica Slaughter for the first time. She's walking out of the woods and is confronted by a girl who has no legs and one arm. Does that girl come back?
Oh my! No, she has legs. Say they're just tucked under.
Does she has legs? Okay, sorry.
They're tucked under her. Yeah,
but she's definitely missing one arm.
definitely missing an arm and an eye. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
like she's been through the gambit for sure.
But then we see, I think the best part about this panel is the introduction to Erica's character, who we see
Yeah.
her with the mask on, covered in blood, 2 knives. Just great art style here.
I wish I had the page numbers, unfortunately, guys, in front of me, so I'm just kind of going through.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to be like, okay.
Well, do you have a? I'll try to find it if you have another panel you want to.
For the first issue, I don't think so. I mean, I think you guys would pick up the interaction, not from an art standpoint, but I think the interaction between the principal and James is really well done. But I think besides that, in the first issue, maybe put up the monster, just because. No, actually, don't put up the monster. Don't put up the monster. You guys should read that your damn self.
Well, I did already show it on screen, but
Okay, whatever.
So we have I had one more in the first book that we also referenced, and that is the on page 18. This is the board where we see all of the missing children. Just great sort of silent storytelling.
Yes.
We see how dire the situation is when Erica gets off the bus. That's another cool moment.
Yeah. And I think the whole sequence in the woods where the kids are getting slowly taken apart is a good sequence, but a bit rough. It's very rough.
Yeah.
Anything else in the first issue?
Nothing in the first issue for me as far as art goes. On to the second issue, I think the again on page 18 of the second issue, this is just like a really beautiful page. I think this is page 18 again, like I said, and it's when Erica's entering the motel. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the colors in this page, and I'm a sucker for pastel tones or whatever. But it was just this brief moment in a story that is really, like, as we said, like really ramping up. We've got lots of dead kids, and then we get this really beautiful sunset mountain scenery as she's entering the motel. I thought it was really well done, and I like moments in books where artists just gets to flex their art style. This is really cool.
I think in the second issue, I also have the scene where I think it's also very good, like, storytelling from a comic standpoint of the monster looming over Tommy.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, and you like, that's just immediately like, oh, not everybody can see these things, and that's like, they don't say it out loud. It literally is just show don't tell for this shit. It's great.
I think that the key to that scene is the reflection.
Yeah.
And we see his face in that he's not like, because obviously without the reflection you see, is anybody there? This could be, because it's a comic book, we could be a shot of him like right about to die, but we see in his face that he's looking at nothing.
Yeah.
For as far as he's concerned, there's nothing there. So I think that's I agree with you. That's a really cool moment.
Trying to think of anything else in
I have nothing in issue 2.
Issue 2.
I have one more nomination. It's in issue 4. So if you have anything in issue 3, we can jump in there.
Issue 3, no, I think the not necessarily from an art standpoint, but I do love the interaction for the police interrogation scene. I feel like that's something that should just be read because it's just so well done between the two of them. But nothing in issue 3 for me. I'm going through now for my notes see if
I'll give my nomination for my pick for issue 4, and this is the like gearing up scene when Erica's entering the cave. It's just one of my favorite action tropes. Character suits up for a shout out to John Wick, where he goes and like in the second movie where he's like going to all the what they call it, the tailor or whatever, who makes the bulletproof suit or whatever. Yeah, it's just great. She puts her mask on, gets the chainsaw out of the bag. Yeah.
I mean, even this, I think the splash page next to it too, even though like it's horrifying as hell, it's just like such a cool, like, you know some shit's about to go down moment.
I mean, even the next page we have like you said, the there's like that severed head at her feet and everything. Yeah, it's great.
And I think my last no, this is these bookmarks suck, guys. I don't get why people put them in their textbooks. But I think the final page and the book.
Final page on issue 5.
Like of issue 5. I think the to be continued things. I could feel like I could almost like hear the to be continued like end page. Maybe I'm just like because I've been rewatching Cowboy Bebop. I don't know. But it's just like Erica's just like over the monster, covered in blood, and it's just like very clearly like this is like almost like it's basically sequel bait. Like basically saying like this isn't over yet, but it's like it's instead of being like it's just more like oh fuck yes, let me keep going with this story. I think this book could easily be 1 volume.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It could just be 1 volume. It could have been a one and done. But they've did such a good job, especially in that last issue. We have a weird introduction to that secret society thing that might be magic. What's going on there? Why do they all have stuffed animals? That's fucking weird.
I do love that we just don't know anything about the octopus item when we're done with this first issue. I think that's first volume. I think that's really
I don't think we actually know what's going on in the second volume either. I think they do. He does such a good thing of just like leaving these things going.
Yeah.
Che, you got any other things you want to bring up?
No art, but I have a couple moments that I just wanted to reference really quick. We've already talked about the principal interview. I think that's one of my favorite parts. And of course, the end of that issue, Can I Help? Okay, and can we reference that? I think the only thing that we haven't referenced that I have a note of here, because obviously, as we both said, the best moment in this book is the interrogation scene. It's one of my favorite tropes in any action movie, where like a character who's being interrogated by the police knows more than the police. Whether it's the villain in the scene, like obviously one of my favorite ones is the Joker in The Dark Knight, where he's clearly in the position of power, even though he's been arrested and is presumably in prison and being interrogated.
Yes.
And then in this one, it's of course our hero who is just running circles around the sheriff, who's just like asking him questions, like walks up to the board and is like, who was the first missing child or whatever. I love that scene. The only one we haven't referenced is book 5, page 4. This is the moment where we see, I think for the first time, really James's PTSD. Just not something I use lightly, but I think if you watch 4 of Your Friends Get Murdered, I think PTSD is a fair way to put it. He sees the corpse of the deer, as he's been told to wait outside the cave, and then we get that cut to in the next page. He's looking at, I can't tell which of his friends it is, but it's like in the same sort of prone, mutilated position as the deer, and he gets this flashback. He screams no and stands up. It's just really well done. And then of course followed up by the octopus being like garbage to him for some reason.
Yeah, like clearly the octopus is evil.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, you little baby boy, go die. It's
like,
my guy, relax.
It's like you're a little dickhead. That's why you're an octopus.
Yeah, but I think all of my other, I'm looking through my notes, all the other moments I referenced, we've touched on. So if you have anything else.
No, yeah, I think like the end of the police conversation, pretty much because she's just like walking around in circles around him, and she's just like, why can you stop this? He's like, I'm sorry, there isn't an answer I can give you that would make you feel any better. Yeah. I'm not trying to be difficult. And I'm like, yeah, that's because you always feel like I can't tell you. It's just more like I could tell you, but you just wouldn't understand it.
Yeah. And I think the fact that he accepts that so readily is proof that they are, I mean, for lack of a better word, they just don't know what's going on. One last moment, and then we can probably close this one out unless you have something else to say. I just wanted to show, this is my favorite quote of the book, and I think it's the small things that really make it work. This is book 2, page 17. I have it up on screen. This is Erica talking to James after they've been thrown out of apple beams. If somebody comes to talk to you, you can say everything that's happened. Just tell the truth. You don't need to lie. And this is my favorite part. Because they're going to think we're crazy anyways, and it's a period that really does it for me. Because I love the fact that James is not asking a question. He's not like, oh, they're going to think we're crazy? That's why I shouldn't say anything? He knows. He knows already They're gonna think we're crazy. I've been dealing with this for weeks now. Everyone
Yeah.
thinks I'm a fucking murderer. I don't need you to explain this to me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell the
Exactly.
truth because they're gonna think I'm crazy anyway. And it's just such a small detail that, like, you just change that thing to a question mark, and it's just like an ordinary line of dialogue, I think. And the fact that it's a statement by James is just so beautifully done.
So great.
Yeah, like one of my, but just more proof that it's like the attention to detail is the most important thing when you are a comic writer, or really any kind of writer, is when you can make the difference between that separates somebody like James Tynion or Jeff Lemire or Tom King or any of the other Chip Zdarsky, any of the other like really great comic writers we talk about, and the people who write fun, good comic books, is stuff like that.
Exactly. I'm right there with
being
you.
able to like really shift the tone of a book with with one line of dialogue. Anything else to say about this book, Corey? One of your favorites, one of my favorites. Glad we talked about it.
I mean, I think I talked the book to death just now. I think this book's really, really good. I mean, I'm still happy that I put it as my favorite from last year, and it's become one of my favorite series.
Yeah.
It's just a really good horror action comic that keeps you gripped, and I just like love the world building that James does in it. Everything feels organic with it, and I think everything seems intentional page to page, and I think that's a really well done thing.
Yeah. Have to agree.
No, I think it's great. I think this is a great book, and I'm genuinely excited to reread the second volume and get my third volume eventually.
You can find Something is Killing the Children on Comixology. You can pick up the trades at your local comic book store or on Boom Studios' website.
Support your local comic book industry.
Yeah,
if you can.
don't buy shit from Amazon if you don't have
Don't
to.
buy shit from Amazon. Don't buy shit from Amazon. They are bad. Yeah. Go to a bookstore, or like go to a non-chain bookstore. Buy this, or make them order it. That's what I like to do. It's a weird power move.
I think the deluxe edition is coming out at the end of the month. So
Motherfucker.
if you just want to have the whole thing in your hand, don't have to worry about volume to volume. That's another good way to grab it. Well, I've been Shay.
I've been Corey.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.